When it comes to investors, what's your number one tip or the way you'd recommend people to sell themselves to investors? If they're in a room pitching to them, whether it be for the first time or they've done it before, what's the first thing you look for?
So, be super confident, understand the industry.
When you say confident, do you mean in like yourself, in what you're doing, like, that confidence like that, or confident in your product, or both, or whatever?
Both. I mean, I look at it, some founders, and I think, they may struggle to get a coffee with, a venture capital firm, investor, or get a partnership over the line. So more confidence, the better, because, the confident ones, they're going to be able to pick up the phone and hustle that meeting and close the investors and the partnerships.
Yeah. And then, what should they be doing beforehand to prepare themselves for that?
So, depending on whether it's, say, a retail investor or a sophisticated investor, a retail investor, get a prototype ready, a prototype that looks like a working app that can get them excited, along with a pitch deck. Whereas if it's a sophisticated investor, go along with both of those and an information memorandum, being a 40 to 60 page, very detailed document.
Nuts and bolts, that's what investors want to see.
Exactly.
So I guess you'd see a lot of businesses that are pre-revenue, clearly, like, they're coming to you with either in their ideas phase, or they've got it together and haven't, put the app or anything like that in place, but they're close to it, or they're, ready to get to that point. When you haven't got any, sales or any money to your name, as well, what's your recommendation for being able to get that idea across without them saying, well, where's the proof of how this is going to work?
So first steps is getting them to slow down. A lot of them will want to go straight to development. So, the first thing is, the idea evaluation phase. You want to go through wireframes, user experience, user interface, and build that prototype. And then partnerships and distribution channels is a big one. Once you've got your product there, users don't grow on trees. So you need to be able to go out there and get those partnerships and distribution channels over the line, so that when you launch the product, you're going to get some serious traction. And pre-revenue, investors look at that. That if you don't have $1 million up your sleeve for customer acquisition and retention, you want to be able to have a partnership that allows you to hit a database of, say, 500,000 and get some really nice early traction and start driving some revenue to then go pitch to the VCs.
We were talking about this before we actually started the broadcast, and I wanted to ask you about it because it was such a good answer. What's the worst idea that you keep seeing multiple people have, or that you see the same idea pop up and you have to say, I don't know how to tell you this, but that's a terrible idea, or something that's just not going to work, but people keep coming back with this idea?
Well, I suppose the ideas we hear a lot is in the apps for the fitness industry. That's probably 20% of our leads. You really want to be focusing on a niche and have a huge point of difference, because there's a lot of gym apps out there. There's a lot coming out from the US as well, and lots of competition. So we hear them on a daily basis.
So that's the hot space to avoid.
Gym
so
apps.
I said before, where I'm sitting in Jack Delosa's chair at the Entourage here, but he's not got off completely scot-free. He's recorded a couple of questions so that he can send through. So the first one he sent by video as well, so we'll just play that one now.
Hello GQ community, I hope you guys are enjoying tonight's show. I'm so glad Tom West was able to be there. I'm coming to you live from Ubud in Bali, which is an absolutely beautiful place. Tom, my first question for you is, HyperApps puts a lot of emphasis on their culture. What do you guys look for in people that want to come and work for you?
So I think the main thing would be, being obsessed with the industry. Waking up every morning and being really excited to get to work. And I suppose I'll give you an example of one of our fantastic colleagues, Alistair Hart. He wakes up at 4 a.m. in the morning. He goes for a surf for about an hour and a half. And
4 a.m.
Exactly.
Wow.
And he, fantastic guy. He comes into the office with a smile on his face every single morning. I don't think I've ever seen him in the morning with not a smile on his face. So we have a funny joke, because one of our engineers hacked our Slack internal channel, and every time it loads every morning, you see in 2017 be as happy as Alistair Hart. So just culture is key, especially when you get past that 10 employee mark. Every morning, massive smiles on the face. Going through those stressful times that every business has. You need to be positive, happy, and obsessed with the industry.
That's good points. So we've also got some questions coming through on Facebook. Some were written a little earlier in the day from people who'd seen that this was coming up. But if you have any questions, make sure you feel free to write them in and we'll get to as many as we can. So the first question that we've got from our Facebook audience is from Nicolina. She says, how do I find out if my idea has already been done so I don't waste time trying to get a done idea off the ground?
Yep. So first I would search in the App Store. Secondly, search Google.
Just Google the hell out of it.
Google. Look for some press that they may have got. If someone's launched, they'll usually be able to get a couple of articles, and they'll usually pop up in Google. So within 10-15 minutes, you should be able to find whether it's been launched or not.
So it's not like a labour-intensive process to do that kind of research to find something that's been done?
10 or 15 minutes, yeah. Unless it's happening behind the scenes and hasn't launched yet, then it's hard to find out.
Yeah. Okay, well then our next question is from Jack, not Jack Delosa, another Jack, who says, if I have an idea for an app but have no experience in building one, what criteria should I meet to put me in good stead as an app owner? So do I need to learn to code, for example, to learn the basics? What are those first steps?
Yeah. So I suppose you could come to Hyper, of course. We will
plug number one.
We'll help you along that journey, but ultimately, we want to be able to hand over the product to a founder's internal team, especially when they're scaling globally. You need those dedicated full-time engineers. Understand the market. Make sure it's a big problem you're solving. Make sure it's commercially viable, and then go from there.
But you don't necessarily need to learn the ins and outs of coding yourself.
Well, I mean,
to a degree, or
some will say quickly find a technical co-founder, and I suppose depending on the idea or the business, it's important to have someone that understands, especially if it's a tech business, the way it works.
Yeah.
We have a lot of successful clients, and my business partner and CTO Sasha Reed is just an absolute gun at what he does. So he'll be able to help them through that process and educate them, but ultimately there needs to be someone with a bit of technical experience to handle when they go from Series A and start scaling globally.